There's a handshake, and the One Piece card game finals is off and rocking.
And immediately we've got that search to kick things off. The EZO search, which is going to go and look at the top 5 cards of the deck, grab a Whitebeard Pirates type card and take it into its hand. That is the general theme here of this deck. It does have a very strong Whitebeard Pirates contingency engine, and this is one of the strongest ones that we've taken. Marco, the super rare from PRBO2, a 4-cost 6k blocker that on KO draws you 2 cards.
Yeah, and that's one of the best cards we've got in this deck. It's nice and early. You got your 4-cost, you got your blocker. Right now, we see an Uta hitting the board. Ben, I have casted a lot of... Okay, no, it's just been searched out. I was going to say, I have not seen Uta hit the board at all so far. That is the first Uta, but I'm like, it's too early. How's it? Okay, searched out with a gut, and we carry on.
Yeah, that Uta, a really, really nice card as well from starter deck 23. The Shank starter deck has its cost reduced as long as you have a character with 10,000 power or more on the board. Could be a really nice equalizer in those late game stages. But we see just an 8k swing going in here, life being taken, which will activate the Ace Leader ability, drawing a card into hand, and now Otama to filter.
And Atama's very nice. You get it down there. You get that draw power coming out nice and early. That wonderful 1-cost. If you got 3 or less, you draw 2, trash 1 from your hand. You get towards those cards. In a lot of matchups, you really want that Iron Whitebeard into the big Whitebeard nice and quickly. Not so much in this matchup where really it's going to be a lot of what I like to call ping pong Jozu, but right now we are starting off with an Izzo, and that's going to search for a Whitebeard card.
Yeah, this certainly isn't completely unnatural for ace decks, doing a lot of early searching, a lot of early filtration. Generally, when you're on the odd-on curve, you like to sort of go with your EZO, as we've done here, that tentative swing, and then expect something like a blocker Marco with the Don attached underneath to have that leader ability readied. And with Eduardo here, fetching a Marco of his own is going to set up for that in these later turns.
Yeah, that's what we're going to be looking for now. We do have a rather close, we got a mirror match here. Both players playing an Izzo and one other 1-cost support card. And since we had an 8k swing from David, why not have an 8k swing from Eduardo as well?
Looks like this is going to be a 9k swing as well, actually, with the third Don attached underneath. One of the biggest powers of Portgas D Ace, and one of the biggest reasons why this leader has been such a meta staple is that 6,000 power base that is on the leader as printed. So you have to put a lot of work in to be able to either counter out of these swings or just allow the damage to go through in these early stages.
Absolutely. One of the key points about this ace leader is that 6,000 power. It throws the matchups off from like every other leader. You build your deck because the vast, like 99% of One Piece leaders or more have 5,000 power. So then you got this 6,000 power on the ace, and now all of a sudden every other deck is just like, oh, seriously. But what are we oohing, Ben? What are we oohing?
We've got an early Charlotte Pudding coming down here from David, disrupting some of the close hand sculpting that Eduardo was utilizing here with those EZOs and with that gap. And this is something that you will tend to see quite a lot as well in the mirror matches in particular. A lot of early Charlotte Pudding plays to disrupt some of those early filters and those early searches that I was talking about that we like to generally see before we start getting into those mid to late game stages, where you say with the Jozus going back and forth and then the Iron Whitebeard into Edward Newgate.
But I do like the Pudding combined with Jozu, because when we get into ping pong Jozu, you've always got a Jozu in your hand ready to Jozu your opponent's Jozu. So playing a Jozu to Jozu your opponent's Jozu, but then using a Pudding to shuffle it into their deck so can hopefully stop a response. So yeah, we're going to see a lot of Charlotte Pudding in this matchup as we go through this final. A reminder, it is a best of 3. It is untimed. We will be here until we're done. And I hope you'll be with us.
And David is wanting to try and escalate that a little bit. We saw the 7k swing go forwards, but that procced the activation of the second ace leader ability. Another one of the biggest reasons why this leader has been sticking around so long in the OP13 meta, because it has an opportunity to discard any card out of hand and essentially turn it into a 2k counter. So a lot of these top-end, high-cost cards like Edward Newgate, like Marco's that are counterless, turn into 2k counters all of a sudden. They
do indeed, and it looks like... yeah, we are getting our first Jozu of the day. Bounce one of your characters back to bounce one of your opponent's characters. Now, you can't bounce anything with a Jozu. That's quite important. There is a limit there, but we are going to see it happening again and again and again. 6 cost or less. Great for bouncing opposing Jozu. Marco blocker. Charlotte put in sometimes if it's the best thing there. Absolutely crucial. We see a 6k swing, and it's not countered, but we see an example of that leader skill, using it to get rid of an I am Newgate for a 2k counter. And oh look, there's a Jozu to Jozu my opponent's Jozu. Who could possibly have seen that coming?
Yeah, and so the war of attrition has gone. We know how much of an important player that Port Gasteiz was in Marineford in the Great War, but now in his own war with himself and searching a new Jozu out as well with this Ezo to just show the threat to Eduardo here. Look, you can play the same one that you've just been bounced back as well, but it will go back straight away.
And that's the thing, when you're using Jozu against each other like this, you guarantee that your opponent always has a Jozu. When you get to Tendon, you can combine it with a pudding to try and make sure that your opponent doesn't have the Jozu, but you can kind of end up in a little bit of a stalemate in the mirror here, where you don't want to let your opponent keep their Jozu, and they don't want to let you keep yours, so it kind of goes back and forth until somebody blinks and does something slightly different, like eschewing it entirely for the Newgate, or, you know, combining it with a pudding. Right now, we've got a Monkey to Garp coming down, and that is going to search out any card with a cost of 3 or more.
Yeah, this Monkey D Garp has been such a great tool for OP13. Not just for ace decks, of course, can also help out Sabo and Luffy, 2 of the other leaders that were brought into the game with OP13. But it has been Ace of the 3 brothers that has seen the most success. That's not to say that you shouldn't be scared of a Sabo or a Luffy player on occasion. I remember I played in the Edinburgh Regional Championships last month, and I played off against a Sabo deck in that run from OP13, and it came down to the wire, you know. 2 Sabo blockers do get scary.
Sabo is a legit card right now. Well, we just saw a Jozu coming down here, and we also saw a Marco blocker searched off of the Monkey to Garp. So we're Jozuing around for a little bit. Don't sleep on Sabo. Sabo's a legit deck right now.
Yeah.
We've seen it on stream this weekend. They love that Monkey to Garp as well.
And it looks like we love Monkey D Garp so much that we're actually bouncing the Garp back into our own hand, and we've just immediately replayed it now down as well from the Jozu effect. It's going to be Yamato that we're going to draw out from this Garp search, which is such a great card to be able to help add to that consistency by drawing some cards, and it attaches a Rested Don to your leader as well. So immediately activates that ace leader effect of being able to draw 1 card as long as you take damage, or if a character with a base 6,000 power or more is removed.
Absolutely. Right now, both players have taken 1 damage. You've got 2 life remaining for each of the players. And it looks like a decent hand size here, as Ace tends to do. Ace does tend to draw a lot of cards. Part of the mirror match is going to be trying to whittle down your opponent's hand, get some cheeky swings, force some responses from them, try and get rid of that hand, or even combine that with, say, a Charlotte Pudding, so that you can start your opponent on a lower hand size and then start whittling down. For the moment, looks like an 8k swing with David and that Ace leader.
Yeah, and you've got to go with this 8k swing here to get those potential of 2 cards out of hand here. Also, just to try and draw out the leader effect of Ace. We talk about magic numbers quite a lot in the One Piece card game for those that may be a little newer to the competitive scene of it. Generally, if your leader is at a 5,000 power base, which 99% of leaders are in the game, Ace being one of the few exceptions, you tend to try and swing at 7,000 power or more to have that increment of 2,000 power to get 2 cards out of hand. The same goes here when it comes for 8,000 power in into 6.
Well, if you've seen Jozu once, you've seen Jozu a million times, you've just seen it again, and allowing that payment of 1 for the Izzo, which is going to go and search a Whitebeard Pirate, which is going to be a Thatch here, which I'm not going to tell you what it does. It's a 2k counter. No one ever plays this card. It's just like Uta. It's in your hand as a 2k counter. That's what it does.
Yeah, the Uta does see a little bit of play sometimes in the late game stages because it has that blocker keyword. If Ace wants to go, for example, just sort of 3 wide with blockers to really make sure that they are safe on a turn, or if they've got 1 life remaining, they're safe to take that final life. They've got blockers for the rest of the attacks, and then they have access to the Gold D. Rogers secret rare from OP09, which says, hey, you know how I've got no life and you've just tried to put blockers of your own down? Yeah, if you use one of them, you lose the game.
Yeah, and that is one of the reasons why we see it less in a matchup like this, because Roger's not nice to blockers. Well, we've just seen a Jozu. We're going to see a lot of Jozu this game, Ben. Jozu's going to keep coming.
Yeah, these Jozus continuously just putting in a lot of effort. We are seeing a Marco come down, though, however, but we're pretty sure that David has access to at least 1 more copy of Jozu, so we will be able to bounce away the Izzo, bounce the Marco back into Eduardo's hand, which won't activate the on-KO ability to draw 2 cards more for Eduardo. So potential for a little bit of a win there, but like you said, Ross, this Jozu train is not showing many signs of stopping. Atmos, though.
Well, this is very similar. Atmos is kind of like budget Jozu. It's a little bit cheaper, and it's not as good. It can only bounce a 4 cost or less, but it's plenty good enough to bounce a Marco. You do need to reveal 2 Whitebeard Pirates from your hand, although we did. Also, you know what goes well with budget Jozu?
Actual Jozu.
Big Jozu.
And we revealed, I think, 2 copies of them as well to pay for the on-play effect. You do have to reveal 2 cards with a type including Whitebeard Pirates from your hand in order to activate that 4 cost or less bounce effect. But just showcasing again to Eduardo, if you weren't familiar, I've got multiple copies of Jozu in my hand. If we really want to continue to do this dance, I can keep going for as long as you need me to.
Yeah, we do all have homes to get to and dinner to get to, but the Jozu train stops for no man, so we are going to see a few of them as we get through the rest of this game. Worth noting, David does have, he's got the Atmos, and he's got the Jozu, and there's a pudding down there as well. David is going to be in a position to start making some cheeky swings, some speculative swings, start kind of forcing some cards out of Eduardo's hand here. Right now, they're playing a Garp as a little bit of a searcher. This is a point of the game where you've got all 10 of your Don out. It would be lovely if you could start pulling off some of these big combos rather than having to rely on something like Garp to then just be searching a little bit more. But right now, there's clearly something he's missing.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's just a copy of the 10-cost Edward Newgate, maybe even a 9-cost Edward Newgate. That's what we're going for. Charlotte Pudding to say, those 2 Jozus that you showed me to pay for the Atmos ability, that is going to be a really, really nice way to counter them and potentially stop them from being in your hand as well. We're just going to snap play it here. Makes a lot of sense. Let's get those Jozus shuffled away, and let's see how lucky David is to potentially redraw them.
Now, the good thing is you're getting rid of the cards in the hand. That's wonderful, right? The bad news is David's still got a Jozu and an Atmos on board. And if you bounce them, well, then David can replay them and reuse the bounce. So this is a play where, you know, don't get me wrong, you're hurting your opponent, but when there aren't Jozu on the board, if you can do this after the bounce, that is when you get a little bit more value here to stop your opponent. If I'm David and I'm going to sit there just swinging for 7 with Jozu for a while, I'm cool with that.
Yeah, best case scenario there would have been probably to say, like, Jozu, bounce your own card, bounce a Jozu back, and then go with the pudding, but that takes all 10 of your Don. We saw that the pudding got searched out from the Monkey D gap, so it wasn't there originally to be able to go ahead and utilize, so I've had to go around it a little bit differently.
Wow, we've got a 7k swing here. That is gotten rid of with the leader ability. I Am Whitebeard does not have a counter, but with the ace leader, it becomes a counter plus 2k, gets rid of that 7k swing from the leader.
Just trying to decipher what exactly David has drawn into as that post-pudding hand. It does look like I saw a 10-cost Roger. We do have a gap, which is pretty decent. It's going to get us a look at 4 further cards into the deck. Try and draw into that Jozu once again. Oh, ask and you shall receive, Ross.
Yeah, Eduardo's looking at that going, dude, I just got rid of your Jozu. Well, unfortunately, there are more Jozu, and obviously getting rid of that Marco blocker is something you generally want to do. It is obviously the Marco blocker we go for here. You bounce your Monkey to go up to hand. That could either be a 1k counter later on, or you could replay it for more search. Right now, we're going to see 1 dot on the Atmos and a 6k swing at life here. Doesn't need much, but it will force a response from Eduardo, and that's what a lot of it is before you get to the end game. Force a response, make your opponent lose some resources.
Yeah, that's the difficult thing, is trying to whittle down this really, really well-sculpted and well-fulfilled hand that Portgasty Ace players are able to create. It's why so many Emu players nowadays have gone into cards like Shirahoshi, the 2k counter, that's able to just trash a card out of the hand and get a little bit more work into that hand that Ace can perfectly create and sculpt. So with the 6k swing here, just asking a little bit of a question, just saying, okay, do you have a spare 1k counter that you're happy to trash away? Are you going to activate the leader ability? If you are, then it's telling, and let me dial up the pressure a little bit more, as we're seeing here with a successful 8k swing.
Yeah, that's what I said about having that Jozu on the board that can keep swinging. 8k swing goes through, and it's that magic number like you say. We're in one piece when you attack, the tie goes to the attacker. So when you're swinging 8k, if your opponent counters with a 2k, they still need something else to get rid of it. Now we see a Garp coming down. What are we going to get for the Garp, Ben?
Something that's 3 cost or more. I think I see that there might be a Roger in that search. Looks like either Marco or Edward Newgate, as well as the card closest to David's hand. Just going to have a little bit of a check of exactly what is in there. And it is going to be the Uta 2k or blocker that we are going to go ahead and grab from it. So a little bit more of a defensive mindset here from David. Importantly as well, we still haven't seen that 8-cost Iron Whitebeard into 9 or 10-drop Edward Newgate in this game.
Yeah, if my board looks like David's board, I am fine going a little bit defensive. I've got 2 Jozu, I've got an Atmos, I've got a Puddin. I have got 4 viable attackers in addition to my leader, and my opponent's got a Puddin. That's it. I'm not counting Garp. I'm sorry, I'm not doing it now. Not until we get to the late game and you can put like 6 Don on there. So right now, if you're David, you're looking at that going, I'm cool. Yeah. I'm down with this. I'm going to sit here and keep swinging, and I am not going to go any more aggressive than this unless you make me.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Eduardo here splitting what looks like 7 Don across here from his initial mindset. You'll see a lot of players sort of map out their Don visually here with what they want to either contribute to a new character or an event card or something, what's going to start getting attached to a character itself to go ahead and attack. We're now seeing 8 Don. Is it finally time? It is.
I am Whitebeard.
And it's the 10 drop that's going to make its way down onto the board here. We're going to activate the 10 drops effect, drawing 2 cards and trashing 1 from hand, and then we're going to get 2 of our rested Don attached onto the leader and onto one of our characters. And you were mentioning about that Charlotte Pudding. Eduardo's got a Pudding himself as well, and with this 2 rested Don that's going to be attached, that will be a 6k poke that Eduardo will be able to make.
It will. Chose not to take the life and get the extra 2k from that Iron Whitebeard event. Not that surprising when you've only got 1 life left, and, you know, especially with things like Roger potentially coming down. If you're going to play a big blocker, maybe don't put your opponent, put yourself down to 0 life and open yourself up to a Roger play. But we do see Atmos hitting the discard here. He gone.
And now we're seeing the next swing go into the Jozu here as well. So Eduardo just trying to play a little bit of keep away from the life that David currently is holding on to with 2. And this makes a lot of sense, considering that a couple of turns ago, we used the Charlotte Pudding to whittle down and control the hand size of David. The last thing that we want to do is give 2 cards, potentially, with the card from life and then the draw from the effect away, when we could still just potentially be getting 1. Instead, David's actually going to counter and protect this Jozu and keep it around for that just 1 Don 8k attacker that we can use for the remainder of this game.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where we're going here. So, looking at this, we've got 1 life left from Eduardo. We got 2 life left for David. A bit of a better position for David in terms of life, in terms of characters on the board. But that Newgate on Eduardo's side of the board is starting to look a little bit threatening. So it takes a lot to get over that. What would be great is like a red rock.
Yeah.
Get rid of it. That'd be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I think so many of both of these players have been a little bit tentative about when these 10-cost Newgates have started to come down, because you have to play around that Gum Red Rock to not immediately just go ahead and be punished. We're seeing the red Ezo getting played down here. This isn't a card that we get to see a ton of. It is just another Whitebeard Pirate Searcher, but definitely an interesting point for consistency here for David to just get some more of those Whitebeard Searchers going on, but has drawn out the 10-cost Edward Newgate. So if Iron Whitebeard is in hand, we can mimic Eduardo's last turn, and with 2 life remaining as opposed to the 1, we might have a little bit more freedom to take that damage and give us the extra 2,000 power on our leader from Iron Whitebeard.
Well, right now we got Pudding on Pudding Crime, Charlotte Pudding Attack, Charlotte Pudding sends Pudding to the trash, which is something I'm not fond of. I don't like putting Pudding in the trash, Ben.
No, certainly not. I've got a real bad sweet tooth sometimes, and if we have to send Pudding to the trash, it's a big waste of it. But unfortunately for Eduardo, we don't want to contribute the ace leader effect or a bunch of cards out of hand to be able to protect this Charlotte Pudding.
There's a big swing coming here, Ben. 10k swing on the Jozu. It's not enough to go over the Newgate blocker, so Newgate will be able to block this if they want to, and it will survive the block as well. So David really seems to be trying to bait out the blocker with this play.
Yeah, just trying to count out the remaining Don as well that will be left. 6. So we could go, if there is a block here declared onto the Edward Newgate, it would be, if we load all the Don onto the other Jozu, 13k into 12k, which isn't the ideal numbers. Really, we want 1 more of those Don to be able to go 14 into 12, and then again, you're hitting those magic numbers of the 2,000 differential, forcing 2 cards out of hand. There is the block.
And I'm thinking here we might just be going for life. We might just be going, you know what, I don't really care. Like, I'm just going to swing for life here, because I think now your leader's gone. If I do a 10k swing, you are not able to go out for this. And if once I put my opponent down to 0 life, I can potentially go for like a big Roger play, who does have rush and can't be, well, you can be blocked, but I would not recommend it. You instantly lose the game. So I don't know if there is a rush Roger, but certainly this could be a play where David's just going, I'm getting you down to 0 life, and I'm going to win the game next turn.
Well, I think I did see that there was one drawn into hand off of the Charlotte Pudding that we last saw from Eduardo. So if this is the idea here, it could be a very close setup. But of course, it doesn't just mean about your opponent having 0 life. You can have 0 life yourself for Goldie Roger to work. Eduardo, though, isn't going to run that risk. He's going to counter out of that big swing.
And that's the thing. Even though that didn't work, oh, an Uta blocker comes down. Oh, I kind of love this. You're like, oh, you're not going down to 0 life? Then I can play my Uta blocker, and obviously Uta gets a massively reduced cost. It's a -4 cost if your opponent has a 10k character. That Newgate is turning that Uta into a 2-cost blocker rather than the normal 6. So even though that play didn't work, you didn't get over, you didn't get to the life, it still did work. Because look at what Eduardo had to give up to get rid of that attack.
Yeah, really nicely sequenced there from David. And now with this Uta blocker on the board, it is a 6 cost as represented on the board. So it is still bounceable by something like a Jozu. But we've seen so many of them in the early stages, in the early exchanges of this game, that they're now starting to run out of steam a little bit with it. And the last thing you're likely going to want to do is utilize something like Gum Red Rock to go ahead and bottom deck something like an Uta when we still know that there are 10-cost Whitebeards that are unaccounted for.
Well, right now we have is that a 10k swing? It's
yes.
a 10k swing with the leader, and now the players are starting to push a little bit. They're going for bigger swings and really trying to get rid of resources in opponent's hand. We did see the block there from the Uta. Now we see Newgate going into that Jozu. It's 5k bigger. I don't think you can justify spending resources to save it. Now a Marco blocker and an Uta blocker hits the board. You don't get the cost reduction there because there is no giant character on your opponent's side of the board. But Oh, sorry, you get the reduction from your own Newgate. Silly me, silly me. Regardless, you've now got 3 blockers established, one of which is gigantic, and Eduardo has gone full defense.
Yeah, but look at the amount of cards that Eduardo has in hand. There's only 2. And yes, while there are 2 blockers on the board right now, there is the opportunity if Eduardo doesn't block correctly here that there could be that 10-cost Roger coming down and making that Marco and Uta completely obsolete. So not quite completely wrapped up here from David's perspective or from Eduardo's by any stretch of the imagination. I feel like this is going to be an important turn here for Eduardo to navigate defensively.
The good news is you swing with someone like a Jozu, 7k, your opponent is going to have to counter as well as block or give the blocker up. Now, we do see the 6k leader swing, and as suggested, you give up Marco, but that is a draw 2, and that's not great for David here.
It's actually a draw 3 when you include the leader ability into it as well, because of the 6,000 power or more that's been KO'd in that exchange. So Marco really, really nice to have there just block with. There's the 7k swing attempted with a natural 2k counter. There is the first copy of 10-drop Edward Newgate coming down for David. Having to pay all 10 for it can feel a little bit awkward sometimes, but at least you're getting the rested Don attached onto the pudding and the ace more than likely in this situation. Your own ace leader ability is going to be online, so it doesn't feel like the Don is completely wasted.
No, there's no I am Whitebeard coming in here, so you know what? You have to just pay the 10, get it down. Is it ideal? No! Obviously it's not ideal, but we do what we can with what we have. So in comes the in comes the Edward Newgate, regardless of the I am Whitebeard, and we roll from there.
And we see the Don attachment. It is just going to be onto the pudding and onto the Portgasty ace, which makes the most sense. Although the swing with the Charlotte pudding could be a little bit scary because of that 1 life. We are going to just go ahead and do it here. Eduardo will counter normally with the Atmos, so no threat of a Roger of Eduardo's own, and David will pass the turn on over. Real back and forth affair at the moment in Game 1 of this One Piece card game Season 2 European Championship Final. Both these players going to the World Championships in March 2026 in Japan, but only one of them can be going into that event as a championship finals winner.
Yeah, they're both going to be there. Who's going to go there as the European champion? That gives bragging rights, Ben. You turn up and you're like, oh, no big deal, European champion, just kind of here to play some One Piece. Don't mind me, European champion coming through, European champion sitting down, European champion getting ready for round 1. I'd be saying it every 5 minutes. Now, Yamato gets to come down here, and that's going to give another 6k body, and it's also going to allow you to draw 2 and give a rested Don to your leader.
Yeah, this card is just a real powerhouse, especially in the mid-game stages for Portgasty Ace. Getting that draw 2, which is just an unrestricted draw 2 in Ace, because you do have to have 3 or less life in it, but you start with 3 life as you trade off for being a 6k leader, so you're immediately good there. And then the 1 rested Don, as I said earlier on, just immediately activates the leader ability for you defensively on the next turn. And like you said, Ross, being a 6k body naturally, so is able to just poke at the ace leader life with just no Don restriction, but against everybody else, 1 Don attached, and that's 7k, asking for 2 cards.
Absolutely. I've been launching this ace matchup a lot this weekend, shockingly. And having 6k bodies is absolutely crucial. Having things that you can use to swing into leader without having to commit Don is big. Now, speaking of committing Don, we committed 2 Don to ace. We got an 8k swing. Looked like that was going into the Jozu here. So we're 1k over. We're going to need a 2k counter to save it.
Yeah, intriguing that we're going into the Jozu here. Might just be deliberate because we've got the 4 Don open right now. I'm not sure how many Marcos that we've seen from Eduardo through the stage of this game, but that's at least what it's kind of trying to telegraph to me at this point. Just having another blocker on the board that's going to draw you 3 cards if we block with it first with the on-KO effect and the ace. Speaking of Marco, for David, he's just going to be ace leader ability fodder.
Yeah, unfortunately so, but this is one of the cool things about Ace. Marco is a great blocker, but it doesn't have any counter because it's too good of a card. Ace turns it into a 2k counter. This Ace leader really is one of the best in the game right now. 2 Don on to Newgate, a 14k swing into Jozu, and surely at this point David's got to be like, yeah, that's too rich for my blood, buddy. There's no way you can counter 8k to save a Jozu.
You can block, though, with the Edward Newgate, use the abilities to counter, but instead, no, we are just going to let it go. We don't want to run that risk of anything happening to the 10-cost Edward Newgate.
No.
We do draw a card off of the Ace Leader ability. A second Uta comes down there from Eduardo, and it is plenty of blockers, plenty of mid-range threats as well with that Yamato that are on the board as Eduardo does a little bit of scouting, sees that David, okay, how many cards have you used already in this game? What kind of numbers of 2Ks are you working with now?
And we see the way Eduardo's playing here. Lots of blockers protecting that last life, saying, I am not going to let you Roger because I've got 0 life. Now, you can get out 0 life, that's a whole different question. But I'm going to put these blockers down. I'm going to protect that last life. And David, there you saw there was no countering to block with a Newgate and save it or any of that. Protecting the Newgate, letting the Jozu go down. But right now, it does feel a bit like, despite being slightly behind on life, Eduardo looks like they're in a very good position here with all of those blockers on the board, making David really work for this. But right now, the Newgate is not an active blocker, so it's only the Uta that can block.
Yeah, 2 Utas that are blockable here, so might just see another sort of setup turn here from David. Try and go with a 12k into maybe 12k of the rested Edward Newgate that Eduardo has on his side of the board. Wherever it's going, Uta's going to jump in the way, and I think I do see there's another 10 drop in hand for David. There it is, getting played down. Draw 2, trash 1, spread about some rested Don, and hey, maybe that Charlotte Pudding can try and go in for some chip damage as well.
Pudding is often the target here for this Edward Newgate Don, and it's a very good reason. It goes from a 4 to a 6, 6 being the magic number in this particular matchup, and it's often just sitting there on the board, so yeah, like most of the time it goes on to Pudding and it works, and your opponent isn't going out of their way to really remove the Pudding. It's not that much of a threat once it's down. Yeah,
but we do see the counter out there with a 2k, and again, Eduardo still working with a very, very limited hand at this point, and normally this is the sort of position where a lot of Portgasty Ace players will start to panic. That big, careful hand size that we've sculpted through EZO searches, GARP searches, Marco blocker KO abilities, and the life draw from the card effects, and it's so much that's going to be able to be drawn in. But this is where you start to think, going up against Ace, okay, I've got a little bit of a chance here. Eduardo, though, has been able to leverage that lack and that disadvantage in hand size with the advantage of the amount of blockers and defensive pressure that he actively has on the board right now.
Well, right now he actively has another Yamato coming down, and of course, we've seen this before. We just saw it from his opponent like a couple of turns ago. You get to draw couple of cards, give a rested Don to your leader. Eduardo's played a bunch of those. We've got another one coming down here.
So I think this is the same one here. We're just debating on...
Oh, it's the same one?
Yeah, we were just debating...
He picked it up and put it... Okay.
Because he's attacked with it. That was sort of the debating about whether he wants to sequence with the Yamato first, or whether there's something in hand that he wants to do first before going in with the Yamato. But
either way, it's countered by the Atmos. We good, Ben. We good.
Yeah, there it is. And then Eduardo now trying to figure out the remainder of this turn. It is just going to be another 6k swing here. So maybe one of those 2 or 3 cards in hand is another 10-cost Edward Newgate. Maybe it's something like the 9-cost Edward Newgate as well that we've seen become popularized in these later stages of the OP13 meta, a super rare all the way back from OP02 that says on play, boost our leader by 2,000 power until the end of your opponent's next turn, and then you cannot add life for that turn as well. So it turns Ace from a 6k leader up into an 8k leader before any Don gets committed.
And if you're willing to play it with Iron Whitebeard and take a life, it can turn Ace into a 10k leader, which I mean, so many decks just basically take a turn off at that point. They're like, yeah, we're good. We'll wait a turn. Now, we did see the Newgate blocking, and then a second 10-cost Newgate coming out from Eduardo. He now has 2 of the strongest man in One Piece sitting there on the board. Don't think about the logistics. It's fine. What it means is 2 12k blockers for David to try and get through on this next turn. The Uta, they didn't last, well, one of them didn't last long. One of them's still there. And now they're being joined by 2 of those Whitebeard. Eduardo is going block heavy this game.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. We had this discussion as well about the Edward Newgate and which one might be favored. Pay attention to the card that was trashed from this Edward Newgate ability. It was the 9-drop, so was either an option in hand or we did draw into it. And Eduardo here just figuring out, you know what, we don't need to worry about being an 8k leader right now. Probably helped by the fact that there are 2 10-cost Edward Newgates of David's own on his side of the board. So thinking, you know what, an 8k leader isn't really going to help me here if David wants to get really aggressive with them. Eduardo's getting aggressive with his Edward Newgate now, attempting to swing 14k into 12 of one of the rested Newgates.
Yeah, trying to take out one of those, but it is countered with an Uta and a 1k counter, so that is going to be saved for the time being. It's whittled down your opponent's hand a little bit, but it hasn't taken out their blocker. One of the other things is when you swing with Newgate on your turn, it is rested on your opponent's, so that means that only one of those Newgate becomes a valid blocker on David's turn, and David does have 2 Newgate to swing with. And again, they're giving up the blocker if they do that. And all it's a very much a swings and roundabout thing, but David does potentially have 2 gigantic swings here against only 1 gigantic blocker.
Well, Eduardo seeing first the 6k swing from the ace leader is going to be countered away by Uta, so that's going to drop Eduardo down to 2 cards in hand.
But that was a 2k counter when only 1 was needed. You need to track this. It means that they're out of 1k counters.
Yeah, either that or there are counterless cards in here. There's a red rock that's going to come down, the first of the game, and we've been worrying about this and what the right time was going to be to start playing these Edward Newgates to try and play around this card.
But the right time was when your opponent has 1 Newgate that's rested, so Red Rock takes all the Newgate off the field, and now David's looking and going, oh, look, I've gotten rid of your big blockers, you have a very small hand size, if I can do a decent swing to take out your Uta blocker, that then sets the runway for 2 giant Newgate swings.
Yeah, we're not going into life here, though, with this attack of the Charlotte Pudding. It looks like we're going into the Yamato here. It is only 6k into 6k, so 1k's worth of counter will be enough to keep it around, but now with the only 2 cards left in hand, that small Uta blocker still around.
And we know there's no 1k counter, Ben.
Well, we're safe to assume at the very least that there is no 1k counter in this scenario. We do still have the ace leader ability as well.
We do.
That we can activate to turn, if there are 2 counterless cards in hand for Eduardo, into a 2k.
But then we've still got, no, okay, we've only got 2 swings after this.
Yeah.
So essentially, this needs to take the blocker off the board. If the blocker is still remaining after this swing, I don't think David is winning the game this turn. You've got 2 big Newgate swings, that's lovely, but one of them will be eaten up by the Uta blocker, and then you can't win the game. You could, however, David clearly has been trying to get down to 0 life for a little bit. You could use this as a turn to get him to 0 life, and then next turn, boom, Roger.
Yeah, it could be very, very scary indeed, which is why it's making me think about whether attacking with these 10-cost Edward Newgates is going to be a really good idea here. You've just seen your opponent draw an extra card as well, because Yamato, being a 6,000 power-based character or more, will be able to activate the Portgasti Ace's Draw 1 leader ability. We are seeing the 12k swing is going to go ahead and fire in here. So it's going to be important to find out where the direction of this attack is going. Is it going into life? If so, and if Roger is online and available for Eduardo, he might be tempted to allow this attack to go through, block the next one of the second 12k Edward Newgate if David tries to extend here, or just go ahead and block it, keep that 1 life online. I think that's probably the better case scenario.
If David gets him down to 0 life here, that means the Uta blocker's gone, which means there's only 2 decent swings coming out from Eduardo next turn. 1 from the leader, 1 from the Newgate, and you've got 2 life left. So you're not losing next turn. If the Uta blocker goes down and takes away that potential swing, even if a Roger comes out, you just counter out the leader swing, and you're fine. So there goes the Uta. If I'm David here, I want to swing. I want to take out that last life. I don't think I need my blockers next turn. I think Eduardo, best case scenario, gets 2 swings through next turn.
It's either that or we stick these remaining 2 Don underneath the Edward Newgate and go for a 14k swing into the 12k of the Newgate. We don't decide to do that, but I wonder if there was an avenue to maybe swing the 14k into the 12,000 power rested Newgate. If we're playing on the assumption that Eduardo doesn't have any 2k counters in hand, that's going to force out the leader ability and 1 extra card to be able to protect that Newgate safe. If we didn't have that and the attack successfully goes through, that leaves Eduardo with the leader, Gap, and that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed. But right now, we've kept 1 Newgate active. We went for a little bit of a middle-of-the-road plan there for David. Didn't go super aggressive, didn't go super defensive, and leave both of those blockers up. Went for, let's get rid of the Utah. And David does seem to be in a good position here. So here, we are just blocking the initial attack.
Which I think this makes a lot of sense. Try and get Eduardo to commit a lot of Don onto the Edward Newgate blocker of his own to try and force that interaction. We've kept 1 Don open as well, so Radical Beam could potentially be live here. We are at 2 or less life, so it will be a plus 4,000 power counter event as opposed to just the 2,000 power. We are seeing, though, Izo here hit the board, grabbing ourselves a Marco, so more blockers and more protection for Eduardo going into David's turn.
Yeah, agreed. You know, getting all those counters, getting all of those searchers, it's just building up your hand, giving yourself more options, which is one thing Eduardo needs. Eduardo's been going along with an anemic-looking hand for a while now. It's not been looking very strong. So anything you can do to try and beef that up a little bit, something you have to do. And now David's having a little bit of a think. Chose not to go too aggressive last term. Now, what can they do on this following turn? There's only 1 blocker, and if there is something like a red rock, for instance, we don't know. We don't know what's in David's hand, but if something like a red rock could come down next turn and take away that Newgate, oh, that changes all of my thinking, Ben.
Second red rock would be absolutely devastating in this scenario. Yes, we'll still have the Marco blocker more than likely coming down from Eduardo to help insulate and have at least 1 blocker that will draw a couple of cards from us, but that would be very, very scary when we'd have multiple 12k swings. Eduardo going to try and make sure that that doesn't happen. We see the swing go into the Newgate. That will be allowed through. There is that Marco blocker as we expected. Active Don is going on to the ace, swinging for 7 here, and then going ahead and passing the turn.
And that feels like a really big turn. Taking away one of your opponents to Newgate while putting another blocker down on the board feels like it's now going to be, this turn feels like it's going to be hard for David to go over and start taking some of that life. It's been a long time since David took life number 2, and life number 3 still feels like it's a little bit out of reach. You've got 2 decent attackers and putting, if you put some Don on, and your opponent's got that Marco blocker. The only saving grace, once again, because the Newgate was used as an attacker, it won't be blocking this turn. And there is an opening for you to try and take it out if you wish.
Yeah, it just depends on how hard you want to go into trying committing to take that Edward Newgate out, because whatever attack is going to fire in here, there'll be a high likelihood that the Marco blocker will just go away and draw Eduardo a fresh 3 cards. We are going to start this turn off with an Ezo just to search things, get a few more opportunities here. There's a red rock, which isn't searchable with Ezo, unfortunately. That's going to hurt.
Yeah, that is going to hurt, because also it goes to the bottom of the deck, so not only do you not get to draw it, but you kind of guarantee that it's not coming back for a long time.
Yeah, potentially even for the rest of the game as well. Generally, ace lists run about in the range of 2 to 3 Gum Red Rocks. We've already seen 1 getting utilized already from David in this game 1, so if it is just 2 copies of it, that's the last remaining one that's going to go to the bottom of the deck. If there is a 3rd one in the list, then happy days. We have an opportunity to potentially see an extra one again here. But David is looking down on this board state here and thinking, whatever I try and swing with here, Marco's just going to jump in front of and Phil Eduardo double his hand size from 3 to 6.
Yep, that is going to be that's pretty devastating. Like when you go to all this effort to whittle down your opponent's hand, to hurt your opponent and go, I'm going to take away all your options, and then they're like, ha, you took out my blocker, I get to draw free. It's so disheartening at times, Ben.
Yeah, it really is, and that's showing on the face of David now here at this point in the game. Here, seeing just still holding with this 9 Don, not really sure what to actually go ahead and do with it. We can pump some Don onto the ace leader, make it swing 8 into 6, which looks like what we're going to try and do. We're instead going to attach this to the Edward Newgate, so this might be an attempt at 14 into 12 here. Again, try and get rid of that Edward Newgate the hard way, but we've still got Marco to just go ahead and jump in front.
Yeah, and this feels like I'm just getting rid of Marco. Like, you know the Newgate is better than the Marco, so you kind of want to survive. They make the Newgate survive. So this is just a way of saying you're not going to save your Marco, and I don't think you're going to let the Newgate go off the board, and you've got to give up one of these 2 blockers here.
Well, it is going to be the 14K swing declared into the rested Edward Newgate, and Eduardo just having a little bit of a think about whether he does just want to activate this Marco, block, draw the 3 cards from it, or whether there's something else that we haven't necessarily seen out of Eduardo's hand here to be able to utilize. Just going to have a little bit of a check of his own trash now, figure out how many resources that he has used, what's the likelihood that if he blocks with Marco, he's going to draw into more 2Ks, for example, maybe something really, really out of the box, like the Rush Yamato from EBO2 as well. Instead, it is going to be a counter in combination with the leader ability, and there goes a 10-cost Roger from the Ace effect as well.
Yeah, and that's always annoying when you have to lose that one, but as it stands at the moment, you saved them both. You lost a bunch of cards in hand, but you did save them both. Both the blockers, I mean.
So where does David go from here? Does he just put a load of Don underneath the ace leader, try and swing again? That will more than likely absolutely draw the block.
Well, Eduardo's got 1 card in hand, Ben.
Yeah.
Got literally 1 card in hand. So, yes, counted out the last one. That was lovely. You're literally like, you've got 1 card left. You're almost out of cards. So I think this is David going, I'm getting your blocker.
Now just trying to do a little bit of counting here. Has 1 Don attached underneath the leader right now. So the on KO and life take ability is currently live. And now David wants a little bit of a look to see what Eduardo has already expended. We've seen a couple of Otamas in the early stage of this game. We've seen some Utas run in as blockers.
Right now, we're getting an Uta down as a blocker. I went through so many ace games today, Ben, we're not seeing a single blocker Uta hit the board. And we've seen like 57 in this one game. We're not even at the end of game 1 yet, 57 Uta blockers.
Yeah, this is the equalizer here, and this is that kind of extra element and echelon of ace players, knowing when to put these Uta blockers down onto the board with that cost reduction from the 10,000 power character. And Eduardo here actually having a count of how many cards are remaining in his deck. Obviously not something that we often will talk about with cards in deck, with the amount of cards that Ace does draw. Ace isn't Nami. You don't win the game as soon as you drop to 0 cards. You lose.
It goes bad. It goes much, much worse. It's not regular Nami. It's Nami when Teach is having a good day. Not what you're looking for, Ben. So, yeah, this is, this game keeps going. And Ace is refilling its hand nicely and then countering and then refilling and countering and refilling. But there is a rule in the one-piece card game. If you run out of cards, you lose. It's never come up in any game I've ever casted, other than Nami, where they're trying to mill themselves out. But it is something we need to keep an eye on here.
Yeah, and Eduardo trying to figure out exactly how much more time can I afford to take before I really need to start going into this life card range. David's still on 2 life at the moment as well, and with that blocker Uta on the board, can continue to protect these 2 life if he really, really wants to in towards these later game stages. Looks like we're grabbing 4 Don. Are you getting your wish here, Ross? Is Garp looking to eye himself up for a swing?
I mean, no, it's 4-Don onto the leader. We're getting a 10K swing. I just want to point out, David gave up 1 life, and it was like, I don't know, it feels like an hour ago. So David's done such a good job of defense this game. We're using the Izzo skill here. It's not a blocker. Just lets you draw a card and bottom deck a card. You're cycling a little bit. You're getting, hopefully, a better hand than you had before. And then you make the decision. Am I blocking? Am I countering? Or am I giving up a life? And I've got to say, David's played this game so far in a way that makes me think they do not want to give up a life. I say that. Caster Curse kicks in again. Life gets taken, and you draw a card with the ace skill.
Yeah, interesting decision there that we've taken the life here from David, putting both players down to just 1 remaining. And this is also a thing that they're going to have to consider. With this being an untimed final, mental fortitude is going to have to really show itself here. These ace matchups can be real mental battles between each player. So having the opportunity to maybe think, okay, do I need to just reset myself here for game 2 a little bit? Trying to take all of these decisions and make them correctly is going to be something that is going to be watched out for in this final.
Yeah, it's something you'd have to always be keeping an eye on. Players, are they still playing at 100%? It's been a long weekend. David played 9 rounds of the last chance qualifier on Friday. They both played 10 rounds on Saturday. They've now gone through top 32, top 16, top 8, top 4. Now they're in the final. And there's a lot of One Piece been played so far. 2-Don coming down. And Marco's bored of blocking. Marco swinging as an 8K.
Yeah, Marco going in for an attack here. So maybe setting up for a 12K swing with the Edward Newgate. If, say, David just goes ahead and elects to block here, that's going to leave 4-Don for another Marco. Or potentially 2 Utas as well, if Eduardo has enough of them. Does only have 2 cards in hand, so it'd be risky business if it is double Uta to end off the turn with 4 remaining Don. I'm favoring, or I'm hoping, that it is the Marco. It's going to be a life taken, however.
And that's interesting to me because we've now taken 2 life. Now, there is an Uta blocker. So you can't, you can't just say, oh, Newgate's going to attack, win the game. No, Uta can block. But the problem is there's now no life remaining. So next turn, when there's more Don available, that's when Roger can really wreak havoc. It is just popping a Marco down for the time being. And it looks like we're going to leave that Newgate active, keep that extra blocker. You're not going to win the game. It's just going to get blocked. So leave it active. Here comes a Roger here from David. Now that 1 player is on no life remaining, if a block is declared, that means that, well, if you attack with Roger and your opponent declares a block, you will win the game.
This is just game on board.
And
yeah.
that is game on board. So David takes game 1 after happening. Ben, I'm worried you're not listening to me. Our budding friendship might already be over. What is not over, however, is this One Piece card game final. And we're up 1 game. David's got a game. Eduardo doesn't have a game, so now it comes down to it. David wins this, European champion. Game 2 is off. Izzo comes down from David, 1 Don turn, and Eduardo was a player who lost game 1, chosen to go second.
Yeah, and you see there with the Izzo search rightfully getting out the Jozu, but importantly, I think an extra 2 copies of Jozu went to the bottom of the deck in that search, which is a very, very scary place to be with how important that card was in the mid-game stages of this mirror match.
Well, we see an Atama coming down from Eduardo and just draws 2, trashes 1. But it's also just a phenomenal option to bounce back with Jozu, given that it has a 2K counter. And the bonus of going second and playing a 1 cost, you have a Don for your leader. David swings 8K into life, but because there's a Don on Eduardo's leader, lets it go through for the card advantage.
Yeah, and a very simple and sort of traditional start that you'll see with Ace. Just happy to take that first initial life. The remaining ones we're wanting to give up a little bit less, as we saw with David, and was a big key to his success in game 1. Another Izzo makes its way down to the board, grabs a Thatch 2K. These Izzo searches to kick things off haven't really been the kindest for David.
No, and certainly having a bottom deck Jozu is not ideal. The good news is you don't have to show your opponent the cards you didn't take. So that means that you can at least hide that information from your opponent. You look, You show the one you're taking, but it's only the one you're taking that has to get revealed. So at the very least, you can hide that information from your opponent. Leader skill throws away from the leader attack there. Marco hits a discard, and it doesn't go through, and we're back over to David.
Yeah, with Marco hitting the board on Eduardo's side there as well. No Don underneath the leader, however, because of being put on that even Don curve. How going on the odd curve here, though, we have the Yamato that's going to be able to come down, draws us 2 cards, puts us that rested Don that we've used to pay for Yamato underneath it, and swing for 7,000 power.
Yeah, love this. Forcing a response from your opponent. 2k counter will be needed here, or a leader skill. Either will do fine, but you need something here. I doubt it's going to go through. We saw both players be happy to give up 1 life and then protect it afterwards, and especially when you've not got a Don on your leader and you're not getting the extra card draw, you really don't want to let it go through then.
Yeah, I imagine that Eduardo just trying to figure out which one of these cards that he's most happy with throwing away to the Portgasty Ace leader ability here. I saw a couple of Jozus that were in hand there, we really want to keep a hold of as we're drawing up onto 6 Don right now. It is going to be the Yamato that is going to be sent away with the Ace ability, because that doesn't need a Don underneath it. That is just on opponent's attack. And Eduardo now drawing up to 6 Don. Would not be surprised if we see a 6k swing and our first Jozu.
That is pretty standard for your 6 Don turn as an ace player. So it looks like we got the... There it is. There is the Jozu. And we are bouncing back. Well, it's the Atama. Obviously, it's the Atama. You can use it for card draw, or you can use it for a 2k counter. Either works quite nicely. And now we've got that Marco blocker. We've got the Jozu. We're attacking with a Marco. 6k swing into life.
Yeah, just trying to get an extra card out of hand here from David. We did elect to bounce the Yamato back into hand to David with the Jozu, and that's exactly what we go ahead and use as the Ace Leader effect ourselves. So pretty mirrored generally in terms of the defensive actions that we have taken throughout this game, from Ace Leader abilities and counter steps. David does still have the life advantage again, but Eduardo is putting on a lot of early pressure, and David only has 2 Ezos in his character area to show for things at the moment. Yeah,
character-wise, we are not even right now. 2 Ezo from David, and then a Jozu and a Marco for Eduardo. They are much, much stronger characters. One of them has got block as well. We do see Jozu coming down from David, and Ping Pong Jozu well. I thought we were going to go for the Jozu. Might be going for the Marco instead. Marco's a more attractive target when it's active.
Yeah, David just here deciding actually about what to go ahead and bounce back. It was Eduardo who just sort of immediately assumed, oh, okay, we're bouncing back the Marco to make sure that it's not going to be...
It is the Marco.
Yeah, which I think makes a lot of sense. Keeps that Jozu trapped on board as well for Eduardo, so that he can't just go ahead and fresh play that same Jozu to do the whole thing all over again. Bounce David's Jozu back and put us back into this back and forth, back and forth. David here saying, you know what, I've still got 3 life. If you want to swing 8k with that Jozu, or just 7 without any Don modifications on it, that's fine. I can take a life, draw a card. I'm still at 3. Searching out this 10-cost Whitebeard as well off of the Ezo to close out a pretty successful turn.
Yeah, I'm down with that. Getting the Jozu down, getting your hand a little bit better. Those are good things. You're not really being put under much pressure right now. There's a Jozu from your opponent. That's literally all they've got right now. So you got a little bit of time, and we could be building up to a nice I Am Whitebeard turn. And I love a nice I Am Whitebeard turn.
It doesn't look like we're going to go I Am Whitebeard right now. However, Eduardo is going to go ahead and use this gap search. So maybe just missing one of the pieces for I Am Whitebeard. We have also seen that one of those event cards has been trashed away from Eduardo in these early stages of the game to the Ace Leader effect. So maybe just searching for another copy of the event, or searching for the 10 drop. Nope. It'll be Jozu.
And that's a Jozu in addition to the Jozu that he originally Jozu'd. Now he's going to Jozu his opponent's Jozu and get it off the board. One thing I've found from ace players this weekend, most of the time, if you trash an I Am Whitebeard with your leader skill, it means you've got another one in hand ready to go. That has been a pretty constant thing. We'll see if it remains true in this game. Right now, we've Jozu'd. So as your Eduardo, Not much. Well, we could swing with your existing Jozu.
Yeah, we're just currently debating on the gap search right now because we saw a similar trick from Eduardo that he did in game 1. Bounce back the Monkey D gap to his own hand and then play it back down straight again. What we call a flicker sometimes in the card games as well.
I've literally never heard that word, Ben.
You've never heard something being referred to as a flicker?
Literally, and all I do all day, every day is play and talk about card games, and I've literally never heard that term. I think you might have made it up.
Well, there you go. Some education for those.
It's a good term. I might start using it. Let's make it a thing. Right now, what is a thing is Jozu swinging 7K into life from Eduardo's side of the board, and it looks like
it was the counter away with the thatch for 2, and then just a pass of the turn. Importantly as well, throughout the space of this game so far, we haven't seen a Charlotte pudding in the game from either player here. So we've not seen that hand disruption that we saw very, very early on from David in game 1. So both these players very happy and very easy to just draw up their hands, sculpt their hands quite nicely, and get in towards those big hand size stages. Oh, speak it into existence again!
Yeah, it's a caster curse. Oh, I felt so bad earlier on the stream today, Ben. I said that I'd not seen a Boa Hancock miss. Boa Hancock, the red Hancock, the searcher. I said it never misses. I've not seen it miss. What happened the next time the player played a Boa Hancock?
I have a funny feeling it might have missed.
Yeah, it missed. Caster curse. Absolutely ruined it. I felt so bad. Apologies once again to that player who clearly fell to my caster curse, and I apologize. You, however, have willed this put it into existence, and that means a new 5-card hand for Eduardo, which, as we always say, there is a chance that it does end up better than the one you shuffled away.
It very well can do. I've certainly had plenty of games myself where my opponent has Charlotte putting me out of a 7 or 8 card hand, which is okay, it's workable, but then I draw into a 5-card hand and I go, actually, this is so much better, and I just sort of snowball and win the game from there. So David will be hoping that that isn't going to be the case from Eduardo's point of view. Difficult to see at the moment. Looks like there is a super rare of some description that Eduardo has in his hand. It is just going to be a remainder of the turn from David, though, swinging big into the rest of Jozu. That will go down and then pass over to Eduardo.
Absolutely. Now we've got 10 Don to work with. We're late enough in the game. Every Don is there available. We don't... Oh, here we go. Speaking of every Don being available, let's use all of them. Let's play that 10-cost Newgate. No, I am Newgate combo, but you get to play the Newgate, and the Newgate kind of does a little bit of everything. You got a 12K body to swing with. You got a blocker. You're drawing 2 cards and a trashing 1, and you're giving your leader 2 Don and one of your characters 2 Don. There's no put on the board, so it's going to have to go on Jozu.
Yeah, but this is still really, really good, though, considering that you've just been putting out of what was either like a 9 or 10 card hand to draw into a 5-card hand and see 10-cost Newgate on your 10-Don turn. You are absolutely living as we see the 8K swing here still being debated at the moment. We are going to offer up a ace leader effect and then the counter. Then the swing in with the Jozu. That is going to draw the first life card out of the life zone for David. Does draw him an extra card, however, and then we draw for turn.
Absolutely we do.
So over to 10-Don turn now for David as well.
Does he have a big Newgate? Does he have an I am Newgate? Does he have anything he can use here?
I see the event and I see a Marco. I don't know if I see an Edward Newgate 10 drop right now. Might be in the middle of the hand there. See the I am Whitebeard is going ahead and being pulled out to the front of the hand, so it might just be there.
That's usually a sign, Ben.
Could also be a case that the 9-cost Newgate could be being eyed up here. We've seen Eduardo trashing them away throughout the course of this game, but it is going to be I am Whitebeard, and spoiler alert, the 10 drop has been pulled to the front of the hand.
There we go.
So we are just going to go ahead and mimic Eduardo with a little bit of extra Don value and Don to play with, not taking that top card of the life as well to boost us to an 8K base leader.
Hey, Ben.
Hey,
which characters are Don going on?
I have a funny feeling it's going to go on Charlotte Pudding.
It almost always goes on Charlotte Pudding. It's just getting weird at this point. But yeah, we're going to boost the Pudding up to a 6K. We're then going to have potentially a leader swing coming in here as well, which will be at least, well, that will be 8K. Now, there are a couple of Don spare, of course, because you played I Am Newgate. So there is something to work with here. So we get the 2 Don. This is just resolving the skill from the 10-cost Newgate. And then immediately, no. We swing him with something. It's the ace leader here.
Yeah, and it looks like this is just going into life as well here. I was going to say, I wonder if there'll be the temptation to actually use that remaining 2 Don, attach 1 more to the Charlotte Pudding, and then swing 7 at Jozu, and then the remaining Don attach underneath the ace to then go 9 at Jozu. Try and draw out the block or the ace leader ability to then try and go and force the 9K swing as well. Instead, though, it is going to be the 8K swing that tried to go into life. 6K swing also attempted into life, isn't going to be allowed through. That's why we kept the 2 Don spare. We're going to go with Uta's blocker.
Yeah, now that you've got that Newgate down, Uta becomes a 2-cost. We had that first swing that was blocked by the Newgate. Then we had an Atama countering out on the second swing. So neither got through, but resources were expended on the part of Eduardo. And David here manages to establish that Uta blocker in addition to... Ooh. But now it's a Red Rock. Don't talk about Newgate anymore. He gone.
Yeah, and that's a big, big scary moment we saw about when David got the opportunity to use a Gum Gum Red Rock of his own. Things started to pivot and shift into his favorability throughout the later stages of that game 1. Could the same thing potentially happen for Eduardo here? And more impactfully, when comparing the 2 activations of Gum Gum Red Rock between games 1 and 2 for both those players, there was still an extra 10-cost Newgate on Eduardo's board when that first one was played from David in game 1. David's board, however, is quite noticeably absent of a second 10-cost Newgate right now.
Yeah, a couple Izzo that aren't doing very much. Charlotte Pudding, who's quite weak, and Uta, who's really there to block. It's not the most aggressive board we've ever seen. Both players tied on 2 life. We just saw a leader skill activation to trash that Marco for a 2K counter to fend off the first attack. We now see a Jozu attacking. And I did see David point to the Uta. So, yeah, we're countering away in addition to blocking with the Uta to protect our blocker, keep it on the board, I believe.
It's just a counter, I think, that's being activated here, just making sure that we've got the Uta still available for us.
He pointed to the Uta, but you're right, that makes absolutely no sense, Ben. They're both 6K.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now the only remaining swing is going to be this 12K blocker of the Edward Newgate, but Eduardo's still deciding, no, we're going to continue to be a little bit more defensive here, force David to have a really tricky choice if he has a Gum Gum Red Rock of his own here. Does he Red Rock the 10-drop Newgate from Eduardo's side, or does he decide to Red Rock the Marco and prevent that opportunity of a draw 3 later down the line? Not active now. No Don underneath the leader. There's the Red Rock.
It's got to be the Newgate. And I see what you're saying about the Marco. The Marco, you do not want your opponent to draw 3, but you have to get the Newgate there. It's a 12K body. It's a really annoying blocker to get over. It is an absolute beat stick for your opponent to bring out and use against you. So, yes, you want to get rid of the Marco, but it had to be the Newgate you chose.
Yeah, absolutely. As we see, the Newgate is now gone. Both players have expended 1 Gum Gum Red Rock apiece here. And now it is just going to be that 6K swing. We are going to counter away using the Ace Leader ability, trashing away that Radical Beam. So information there to David that Radical Beam is in this list for Eduardo. And then, similarly to Eduardo on his turn, play this Marco, have some extra defense, won't draw 3 if it blocks, will just draw the 2 with its on-KO ability. But now we're seeing 6. Is this another Red Rock? Oh, it's Jozu instead.
Yeah, now Jozu onto Marco feels a lot better than the Red Rock onto Marco. We get it down there. You bump Marco to hand. And the thing about Jozu is when Jozu sticks, it's a 7K body. It's a really, really, really good, competent attacker to have on the board. We now see a Garp coming down. It's going to go and search out 3 more cards here. Well, 1 out of 3, I should say.
And it is going to go ahead and grab the Red Rock into hand. That's just going to be the scoop from David. He's seen enough.
Starts off with 1 Don and nothing else. At least it looks like. No. Maybe he is doing something with that Dom.
Yeah, might just have ourselves a searcher here. It's going to be the Otama instead, which is going to be able to draw us a couple of cards into hand. We do have to trash one of them away, unfortunately. But as we've said, we don't really mind that character being on board too much in these early game stages when we can bounce them back with Josu's.
Yeah, having a 2K counter or a potential draw engine being bounced back with Josu is absolutely huge. So it's a great character to play and a great character to then bounce back. Great turn one play. Here we go over to David. What has he got in terms of a turn one option? There is an Otama there at the front. So at the very least, he could mirror what Eduardo did and pop a Don on his leader. Or has he got a better option hidden away? Right now, it's a monkey to Garp, searching out any free cost or higher card from the limited selection you get to see, of course. And then the question is, do you Otama or do you pop a Don on your leader?
I think you probably just put a Don on your leader at that point. We do have the Otama available to us, but feels a little bit extra maybe. We do get to see the extra cards in hand, but no, it is just going to be the Don underneath, which makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
If Eduardo does just load all three Don onto leader on this odd curve to swing 9k, means that you can just trigger the leader ability. It's going to be 8 instead. Does give us still an opportunity to take the damage and draw one card into hand. That's exactly what David will do.
And I love this, because the thing is, like, Otama is draw 2, trash 1, right? Well, here, yes, you're giving up a life, but you're basically drawing 2. So you're getting a better card advantage from putting the Don on your leader and letting the life get taken than you would if you'd played the Otama. And as we've seen, that first life really isn't relevant. Both players essentially, you might as well start with a 6-card opening hand and 2 life.
Yeah, for sure. Now over to David here with a 4 Don turn. Could just be an opportunity to just play Marco down. 6k swing into Eduardo's life again, similar to what we've been saying with David. Eduardo more than likely will just be tempted to take it here. Any opportunity of an early pudding as well could be quite nice. We do see there is Garp in hand. That looks like there's a Makino in hand for David there as a 2k counter. That's a really interesting inclusion from David's perspective, if that is what I see.
It's not something we see very often, I'll be honest with you, in these ace decks, but could still be fun.
We've got Josu as well at the front of the hand. That will be very helpful for next turn when we're up to that 6 Don turn. And David here just having a little look at himself and thinking, you know what, either this hand really isn't good or I just really need to try and focus up a little bit here. This has already been a lot of One Piece to be able to go through and play just in this grand final set.
Well, we got 2 Don on the leader. We're swinging for an 8k here into Eduardo. And there's no blocker down. So you're 2k over the leader. We're going to have a 3k counter. Or is Eduardo going to do what we've seen so much in this matchup and go, you know what, I can take the first life. That is what we're seeing. First life goes to hand. And, of course, the leader skill kicks in and you get an extra card draw as well.
Yeah, I think that's totally fine from Eduardo there. Gets you the extra cards advantage. You've not seen the pudding on curve, so not having to worry about hand disruption right now. We'll have to worry in the future, though, because pudding has been drawn into hand from this Monkey D Gap search. So Eduardo is going to have to think about whether that's going to happen or not. And David will actually have a tricky choice on the 6 Don curve here. Does he Josu on curve, or does he pudding to hand disrupt and have 2 Don left over for, say, an 8k swing?
Yeah, that is going to be the decision. And Makino actually hits the board here.
Nice.
Not a character we were necessarily expecting to see. Not one we saw in Game 1 or in Game 2. But we do actually have Makino down on the board here.
Yeah, this isn't a card that I've seen since the old school days of green-red lore. You are able to rest itself and give a 1-cost character a 3,000 power boost on activate main timing. So it turns those Monkey D Gaps into 5,000 power for the turn, which then means that only 1 Don has to be attached to think about swinging into the 8th leader and threatening some damage, as opposed to what would be the 4 Don that you'd have to attach naturally.
And when you've got 2 Garp on the field and you're not playing anything bigger, that is not a bad little option at all. 6k swing coming out from Eduardo here. What is David going to do in response?
It's going to be a counter out of with the ace effect. It is a 7k swing as well, but the minus 2,000 power that the ace on her opponent's attack ability grants is enough to be able to keep it safe. And then now that Yamato making its way down again, still adding to these tricky decisions here from David on this turn. We are seeing the 6k swing here from lead, so this might just be the Jozu maybe to bounce Makino and Garp back into our own hand. We are going to bounce the Garp, and it is going to be just bounce the Yamato.
I like this, because now you've still got the Makino-Garp combo that you can use to have a more powerful Garp attacking next turn, which is lovely. But then you've also gotten rid of that Yamato, which we know can be a little bit of a pain, and that Garp can be a searcher if you need it down the line as well. So good Jozu, lot of value gained from that play.
Now over to Eduardo here on that 7 Don turn, so not going to be able to play I Am Whitebeard. One of the biggest reasons why Portgasti Ace favors that second curve, that even Don curve, as a lot of decks in the format like as well. Emu wants the second Don curve. Zoro is pretty happy with the even curve as well. A lot of the big players in the OP13 meta want to be able to go second and hit all of these big impact plays as soon as you're able to do so. For Eduardo here, we did just have that 5-cost Yamato bounced back into our own hand. Now on 7 Don as well, we do have a window for our own Jozu to be able to be played if we have it, and still have 1 Don available to attach to lead, 7k swing, and have it ready for leader ability as well. It will be Jozu.
It is always Jozu, Ben. Jozu is inevitable. It comes down, and it's obviously going to bounce a Jozu. It's not going to bounce a 1 cost. You've got to imagine the Atama, obvious choice here for Eduardo as well. Jozu, obvious choice to bounce for David. And now we are just playing that Atama right back down again. We often see Atama flickering, if you will. We often see Atama used as a 2k counter once it's hit the board once. But, you know, using it as a flicker to draw some more cards, also a very good option.
Yeah, does have to trash one of those cards away at the very least, but with no Charlotte Pudding having brought down yet from David's side of the board, Eduardo could be a little bit more liberal with what he trashes away here. It's just going to be that Yamato, so that's information away from David. It was a card that he knew was in Eduardo's hand previously because of the Jozu bounce, not anymore. So David's running a little bit more blind now.
Little bit indeed. Well, we do see the Garp coming down as a counter there to save the leader from a leader swing. And it looks like we're back over to David. Now, the Garp can be a good attacker here when combined with the Makino skill. You've got your leader, but that's it. They're the only 2 characters attacking right now. I believe we're on the 8 Don turn here?
Yes, we are on the 8 Don turn.
So we could
David.
get big. We could go big if we want to go big, Ben.
We could go I Am Whitebeard, but I don't know whether that's the right idea here. It is instead going to be the Jozu yet again. Intriguingly, we're bouncing the ace of the Garp here back into our hand. I can only imagine that that's going to be because we have plans to flicker it down back onto the board again. There it goes. We're going to do some more searching.
And there must be plans for the Don, because what you could potentially have done there is attach a Don, use Makino, swing, and then play Jozu to bounce it and replay it, you know, flicker it and get that Garp doing the search. So that Don must be set aside for something more important.
It's going to be Izzo.
Okay, that's fine, because then if you only had 1 Don on the Garp, well, that wouldn't have been any good. It'd still be a 5k. That wouldn't be enough, so would it be a 6k?
1 Don attached to the Garp would make it a 6k.
It would. So you could potentially have given up the Izzo to get a swing with the Garp, but instead we do have the Izzo coming down here, searching out that Marco.
Yeah, grabbing that Marco into hand. We've seen how much of a thorn that it has been and can be in these matchups and in so many matchups as well. That on KO to draw 2 cards, PRBO2 treating so many decks to some new tools with brand new cards for the first time in a premium booster set. And really making a very strong and high bar for what those mechanically unique cards could be if there are any future premium sets in the next stage of the One Piece card game.
Yeah, they really went for it. Premium Booster 01 just had Leader Sanji, and Premium Booster 02 was like, what if we gave 3 new cards to every color? 2 rares, 1 super rare. And what if we made a bunch of these really good? And that has impacted the metagame. Even despite it being a premium booster set, did have quite a nice impact on the metagame, which was fun to see.
So 9 Don turn here for Eduardo means that we are now an opportunity to have I Am Whitebeard into 10 cost Newgate live here. Leaves us 1 Don available as well for Radical Beam, Garp, Ezo, and Otama as well if we're really, really desperate. We've got a huge hand size for Eduardo here. I want to take a guess that's easily over 10 cards in hand that Eduardo has right now. David as well, as far as I'm recalling, still does have that Charlotte Pudding in his hand that he searched out from Garp a few turns ago. So David is going to be able to do something about this sizable hand from Eduardo here. David's just going to have to figure out when to time it.
Well, Eduardo here, this would traditionally be when you go for another Jozu. But if you know your opponent's got Pudding, maybe you're worried about giving them Jozu on the 10 Don turn to open up that Jozu Pudding combination of I put Jozu back to your hand and then I put you down to a 5-card hand knowing you don't have Jozu and now I'm getting a 7k swing every turn. So the question is, what have we got instead? It's 9 Don for the Newgate. Just played normally. No I Am Whitebeard. And that's going to give a 2k boost to Ace until the end of your opponent's next turn.
Yeah, this is really interesting here as well for Eduardo in games 1 and 2.
Ben. The Izzo skill just got used.
Very, very well spotted. Very, very well called out. We're trashing it away to draw 1 card and put 1 to the bottom of the deck. But yeah, back to my point about the 9-cost Edward Newgate here. It's very interesting that in games 1 and 2, Eduardo has been trashing these away for Otama effects, for ace abilities as well. This is the first time we've seen him play this 9-beard out onto the board. So not playing in fear of something like a red rock to see it go to the bottom of the deck. Also favoring this plus 2,000 power boost on this turn, knowing that maybe David is going into his 10 Don turn here. It's really, really intriguing.
Well, we saw the swing from the leader. There was an Otama and another card that came down, just countered it away. So the 8k leader swing did not go through in the end. I mean, when you look at the board for David, you've got Jozu at a 7 and then Garp potentially at a 4. Those are the attackers. Now, here comes Pudding to give a new hand, but I'm thinking that the reason for the, one of the reasons at least for the Newgate last turn was going, look, this dude ain't got many good attackers. If I get a 2k bump on my leader, I'm getting a whole turn where they're just not putting any real pressure on. David's going, well, I might be putting pressure on, but you know what? New hand of 5. And I tell you what, I know I said sometimes the Charlotte Pudding hand could be better. I'm not sure that's true when you had 17 cards in hand.
Yeah, it starts to get a little bit more awkward if you are getting such a differential between what you started with pre-Pudding in terms of sheer volume and then what you are finishing off with as well. We'll have to see if we can get a little bit of a peek into what Eduardo is going to be drawing into. And David just double-checking because there is a secondary ability on that 9-cost Edward Newgate. Doesn't tend to get to come up too much because Emu, when you get to 7 cards or more in your trash, everything is protected from removal. But if there's 2 Don underneath the Edward Newgate 9-drop, when it attacks, you can KO an opponent's character with 3,000 power or less. So currently, both Garp and Makino are vulnerable to that.
And that would be some quite nice removal if you are worried about Garp as a potential threat. If it gets some Don on it, you can use Newgate to just swat it aside with Newgate's humorously large weapon.
So with 6 Don now remaining here for David as well. Plenty of cards in hand. Trying to get a little peek into what Eduardo has drawn as well post Charlotte Pudding. I think I see there's I Am Whitebeard in hand. So if there's the 10 drop to go with it, that will be really, really nice and helpful to be able to draw back into. Still got this Jozu stuck in our hand at the moment as David, and we're not really wanting to bounce anything on Eduardo's side of the board back to hand here. So unless it's Jozu bounce the Makino and Garp back into our hand, or bounce the Makino and the Pudding back into our hand as well, because you are able to bounce any card with a cost of 6 or less. It's not just limited to your opponents with the Jozu. That could be a couple of different avenues here. It is going to be Jozu that's going to come down.
I was going to say, you have to double bounce your own characters here. There is nothing on your opponent's board. Like, you can only bounce the Otama or the Izzo, and they are both cards Eduardo would rather have in hand than on the board. So yeah, double bounce, get yourself 2 counter plus 1k. It's not like you've been attacking with a Garp anyway.
Yeah, it's even better as well with the Makino because that's a 2K counter.
Yeah, it is.
As well. So getting an extra little layer of defense there for David. And it's going to need it staring down this big 10,000 power base character of this Edward Newgate. Little better glimpse into Eduardo's hand. I think I spot there's multiple Josus in this hand post-Charlotte Pudding, which if that's true, that's kind of hilarious.
Yeah, well, we see a Garp coming down initially, going to go and search for free. Worth noting, Eduardo's got one viable attacker and no blockers on his side of the board right now. David's got double Josu and a Puddin', so from an attacking standpoint, David's moved himself into a pretty advantageous position.
Yeah, certainly a lot more wide and a lot more varied in his ability to go within some attacks here. We are seeing a payment of 6, though. There is going to go ahead and be the Josu. Bounce our Garp back into hand, bounce the Josu back, flicker the Garp, play that back down, get an extra top 4 search of a 3-cost or more card. And I do see that there's a 10-drop Newgate in hand in this search. That is going to be an eligible target.
Yeah, and that means that can be played potentially next turn. And when you start building up multiple giant Newgate, things start changing quite quickly. Saving grace for David, you still have a Josu on the board, so you can do the Josu bounce, do the ping pong Josu, while also keeping one on the board to swing as a 7K. But when your opponent's potentially going multiple Whitebeard, maybe you need some bigger characters.
Yeah, it could really be a bit of a help here as Eduardo is having to really think about what to take off of this Garp search here. Has he seen another card there that he's maybe wanting to take a little bit sooner? Is there maybe something like Gum Gum Red Rock that we want to take here? Force David or encourage David to play out a 10-drop of his own and then immediately do it in reply. That's exactly the case here as we take Red Rock into hand off of this Garp search. 8K swing to finish off what will be this turn here. David, plenty of cards in hand, so I think this is just going to be a counter. There's the Ace effect, and then there's a 1K with the Atmos.
Yeah, 3K, got rid of it quite nicely. Leader skill gets rid of the I Am Whitebeard. And seriously, being able to use cards like that as a 2K counter when they're supposed to be clogging your hand and ruining your defense, we can see why Ace did so gosh darn well this weekend.
And also now here is the 10K swing that I completely forgot the fact that there's 9-cost Newgate still on the board here as well for Eduardo. And that leader effect from Ace to reduce by minus 2,000 power has already been used. So David is just going to have to take the damage here on this swing. And there's no Don underneath the leader. So David will not be able to draw a card from that life being removed. That could be really, really big.
This feels like a really bad situation for David. Losing that, not gaining the life, and you know, you've got one Josu and a Puddin' down, but your opponent's got a Newgate and a Josu, potentially another Newgate coming down next turn. You're now down a life as well. And look, we know these Ace matchups can swing pretty wildly from one side to another. I get that. But it does feel like that was a pretty big swing towards Eduardo in that last turn, Ben.
Yeah, it feels like Eduardo started to try and push the aggression maybe a little bit more, as David did to Eduardo in the early to mid-game stages of this Game 3 with a Charlotte Pudding, telegraphing it a little bit. Eduardo has done the exact same thing, maybe even a little bit scarier with the fact of saying, okay, you can play this really important, impactful card from your engine and for the general engine of this deck and leader, but if you do, you're going to get punished for it because it's going to go straight back away. David's going to do the exact same thing now with his own Monkey D Garp finding a Red Rock.
And there's no question as to what is going to be Red Rocked here. You have to get rid of the Newgate. It's too big, too powerful, too threatening a card to leave there. Yeah, I was going to say, now if he gets anything else, I'm going to look really dumb here. But why would you get anything else, Ben? There's a 9-cost Newgate on the board.
Yeah, getting rid of that 10K body is going to be really, really helpful for David in these early and these next couple of turns. But the fear then becomes about when Eduardo looks to start to play his 10-cost Edward Newgates down to the board. That's one of potentially 2, at most 3 in most realistic Ace lists of copies of Gum Gum Red Rock that are gone at that point. So is that the door slightly encouragingly opened for Eduardo to start chaining 10 drops on the board and then really starting to put the pressure on for David?
Could be where we're headed. Right now, we do see a leader ace. Well, no, we maybe don't see a leader ace. It was almost switched over there.
Yeah, I think it might have just been the resolution of the EZO effect that had the players just a little bit confused, just giving them a little bit of moment for pause. Can be a little bit awkward when you have so many on your opponent's attack effects that are able to be activated at the same time. But we see there the damage did get taken from the Jozu swing, then the 8K swing from the leader effect with the I Am Whitebeard, and then a 1K counter of another Jozu for Eduardo to make that attack safe. Both players are 1 life remaining here, and I don't think there's really been any stages in these best of 3 and in these games so far where both players have been on 1 life at the same time. There's always been that differential.
There has, and we saw back in game 1, going down to 0 life was absolutely crucial for making sure that that Roger could come and end the game. Could we see a similar thing coming out in the not too distant future here? We're going to have to wait and see, but for now, both players are just trying to take those last 2 life. Blockers have played such a smaller part in this game than they did back in game 1 and 2. Can we see some more of those coming out? Because right now, it's been fairly small swings that have been getting through.
And there is the 10-cost Newgate. Speak for the blockers, and they shall make themselves known. And this was the fear that I had here from David. While, yes, it's completely understandable right now to deal with that 9-cost 10K ace, or that Newgate, sorry, that was on the board and putting in a load of threats, it opens the door up and encourages for these 10-cost Newgates to make their way down. Now, of course, again, this could also be a double bluff out of David saying, oh, I'm going to get rid of this red rock that you know has been drawn into my hand from this gap away from the 9-cost, and to, you know, come and play these 10 drops down. The door's open, the kettle's on, the fire's ready, everything's looking cozy. Psych! Another red rock.
Well, we'll see if he's got another red rock coming out right now. That Newgate is looking pretty imposing. If it feels like kind of if David had a red rock, now might be a good time for it. But right now, we have to just wait. He has done up a bunch of stuff in his hand as it stands at the moment.
Yeah, we've got the 8K swing at the moment from Eduardo's Ace Leader that is being resolved here, using the Ace Leader effect to reduce the attack by 2,000 power, and then the Jozu as the 1K. Important card to note, what was discarded away there from David, it was a 10-cost blocker of his own, and now double 2K being expended to get out of the 9K Jozu swing, leaves David with 4 cards left in hand, 5 with this draw for turn, and Eduardo looking like he could be in a pretty decent position here.
And it's not like you got few cards in hand, but a really nice board setup of characters. We have a Jozu, and then put in with a couple of Dom becomes a viable attacker. Garp really is not. So you look at your opponent, and they've got your Jozu, and then you've got your Newgate. You do not have the same level of board. You're even on prizes, but you've got very few cards left in hand at this stage. It does feel like the momentum has swung to Eduardo. Can David steal it back? There's a card coming down now. Might be a 10-cost. It is a 10-cost Newgate. So that's a big blocker. That's a big attacker potentially for the future. But also, it's going to put 2 Don on the leader and 2 Don on a character. But it doesn't have to be put in this time.
No, it can be Jozu that's going to be able to swing in for 9,000 power on this turn. But remember, I'm pretty sure Eduardo is still holding on to his copy of Gum Gum Red Rock. And this was my exact fear here with Eduardo, who's going to be able to get a lot more value out of a Red Rock to bottom deck the 10-drop Newgate than David could potentially be getting out of that bottom deck of the 9-cost out of essentially necessity here. I could be wrong. That might not have been in the hand anymore for Eduardo, but if it is, this could be very, very scary for David.
Wow, we got an 8K swing from David here, and it's definitely pointing at the Jozu there. Like, clearly pointing at the Jozu. But I don't know if that was I'm attacking the Jozu or I'm attacking your leader. Oh, and by the way, this Jozu's really annoying. I might get to that in a minute.
Now, this is going into the Jozu here. And I think if you're Eduardo, you counter out of this with either 2K, 1K, or leader ability and a 1K counter. Means the only swing that David has remaining is the 9K of the Jozu, which we've got our blocker Newgate on board. We're going to be able to easily rest that down, take the free block of it, and then go into the next turn for Eduardo. There is the activation of the leader ability there. and that is just going to actually be the pass of the turn. So really, really nicely done there from Eduardo, very happily done. And now, do we have the red rock still in hand to deal with David's lone 10-cost blocker Newgate?
Well, we saw David not attacking with the Jozu there, just kind of going, I'm going to leave it active. I don't want to leave it sitting there ready to be attacked next turn. I want to keep it for later. But right now, well, we're counting them out. Having a look at all of those, Don.
I do see red rock in hand for Eduardo. It was pulled to the front for just a moment here. So
it would be brutal if it came down and got rid of that Newgate, because it's not bumping into hand like a Jozu would. It's bottom decking it, leaves it very much unavailable for a while.
So is Eduardo going to commit to that? It is a big commitment. If so, yes, you absolutely are going to commit to it.
Why
totally
would you not?
Correct. Yeah.
Your opponent's got one really good character on their board. You can bottom deck it, and then you still got your Newgate. You're probably thinking average list is playing 2 red rock. 3 would be unusual. You know 2 have already been used, so let's just go ahead, get rid of that Newgate, give myself board advantage, and then try and take this game 3 home.
Yeah, and even so, it makes it an opportunity where you don't even really have to swing with this 10-cost Newgate on our side of the board. We can do the same with as David has done, go with the 8K swing and then the 9K swing as well, just to try and get a few extra cards out of hand or force that final life to be taken. If it does get taken, though, again, Eduardo is going to have to respect Goldie Roger.
And that's the problem. As soon as anyone's down to 0 life, that Roger, we saw it back in game 1, becomes such a phenomenal threat. We see the Jozu swinging here, just a 7K swing, no Don.
Yeah, raw 7K swing. So Eduardo here might be preparing himself with this remaining 4 Don to play Marco down onto board. I think Eduardo does have a copy of it in hand. The issue with that means that there is then no Don underneath the leader to get that draw ability online if we take damage or if a card is removed with 6,000 power or more on our side of the board. The swing from leader is just going to get counted for 1K though. So Eduardo now turning his attention to the 10-cost Newgate and saying, okay, is the time now for this big blocker body to get into the red zone with only 4 or so cards in hand for David?
David does take it. Do we have another swing we can throw out this turn? It's a Marco, no swing coming. It's a bit of a defensive turn, but now there's no life left on one side of the board. Eduardo has got a good board set up with multiple viable attackers. David is down to 0 life. There's no blockers down, just really a Jozu and maybe a Pudding as an attacker. Feels like we're getting to the end of this final bend, and there's going to be 1 or 2 more turns until we're crowning our champion.
And I don't know if I see the 10-cost Goldie Roger in hand here for David. Even if it was in hand, it's not the best case scenario, I don't think, honestly, for Roger, because Eduardo still has quite a few cards in hand, still has that 1 life to work with, and we've not got the tall attackers on the board for David here, like we did the last time that David was successful with his Goldie Roger ploy, and Eduardo only had 1 or 2 cards in hand before taking that final damage. So could be really, really easy here for Eduardo to be able to counter out of the 6K swing of Ace, the 7K swing of Jozu, and then just take the Roger swing from the final life. And David, at that point, could potentially be all Merle out of options.
If there's a Roger in hand from Eduardo, you've got to think that is a great option to finish off the game next turn. Even if there isn't a Roger, if David doesn't play down a blocker this turn, Eduardo can just do like a 22K swing with Newgate. And I'm going to say it, Ben, I don't think David can counter out of a 22K swing from Newgate, and if there's no blocker, I don't see how Eduardo doesn't go, ha, 22K, counter that. Oh, look, I'm European champion. We're not there yet. We're still in David's turn. He hasn't played anything yet, and we haven't had a perfect look at what's in his hand. The fact that he hasn't played anything yet, though, it's been a minute or 2 since we passed to his turn. That suggests to me David doesn't have a great option here.
I think there's a 10-cost Newgate in hand at the very least, so we are going to get 1 blocker potentially on the board. But
there is. Yeah, okay.
But how is that going to insulate us from 6k swing, 7k swing, 6k swing in the Marco, and a 12k swing at minimum?
Yeah, that's if we don't put any Don anywhere.
Exactly.
Those are the swings coming out. Eduardo can start boasting all of them by 2 or 3k, some of them maybe more. We did see a swing from the ace there, but that was countered with the Jozu.
And look at David just shrugging his shoulders and gesticulating, saying, okay, yeah, that's fair, that's understandable. I can sort of recognize the situation that I'm in right now. It doesn't feel like it's a great one without any kind of disruption that could be going on here. I did see, I think that's 6 Don and then 4 Don that split into 2 separate piles. So is there a world where David has a red rock of his own? His demeanor and body language says, no, I don't think that there is.
Cheeky swing with the Jozu and Goldie Roger. There we go. Cheeky swing with a Jozu to get rid of that last life. Player Roger, 13k swing. Eduardo, there's a chance they can't counter out of it. There we go, sorted. I've just figured out how David's going to win this game.
Except ace ability hasn't been used, and if we 2k out of the Jozu attack, then the Roger life just gets taken and we're totally fine.
Yeah. It's not ideal, frankly, Ben. I'm going to be honest with you. It's not the best plan I've ever come up with. We do have 3 Don on a Jozu, so a 10k swing coming out here.
Yeah, and this is all David can, I think, really do, is just try and mitigate the amount of attacks that Eduardo is going to have to be able to play with on this next turn. Try and encourage Eduardo to dump a load of cards out of hand, maybe even block with the Marco to get a couple of extra cards as well. Either way, he wants to get some of these potential attackers on Eduardo's next turn off of this board before Eduardo has the opportunity to go ahead and start to make them threatening. Eduardo here just trying to figure out if I want to go ahead and counter out of this attack. Looks like we are able to if we want to. We do see the 4-cost Jozu, which is a 2k in hand from OPO2.
This makes me nervous, because if I'm Eduardo, I'm thinking, if I get one more attack through, I win. I've got a bunch of good attackers. So I feel like maybe I can just overextend a little bit in terms of countering. Stop all of these attacks going through, but then all it's going to take is for David to drop a couple of surprise blockers or something along those lines. And yeah, I like this. Marco was never going to be a really good attacker next turn. It's a 6k, it's fine, but you're looking at leader, Jozu, and Newgate. That's what you're looking for. Here comes an Izzo. It's going to search a Whitebeard. I mean, are you looking for Marco here, maybe?
Marco or maybe a Thatch as well, just to get an extra 2k counter into hand. It is going to be a Marco that we're going to go for here. Did just think as well there could have been the opportunity, or with the Don splits, that maybe we were setting ourselves up for Marco plus Uta as well as an option. There is going to be the Uta that is available on the board, and it is still going to be the Marco.
So
okay.
It is double blocker. So this is what David's really working for here, trying to buy a little bit of time, saying, now you've got 3 attacks that have got to go. But there could be 3 good attacks. We have a 6, a 7, and a 12. We have 10 Don. There's a potential for someone like a Roger to potentially come down with Rush as well. Is there anything? I mean, David's clearly done what he can in this turn, Ben, yeah?
Yeah.
He's clearly done the best he could under the circumstances.
Yeah, this is as much as David could have potentially asked for in this scenario. I do also see that there is the Atmos in hand here as well, which could be a really nice, cheap way to be able to stop that Marco from being an issue, because for 4 Don, revealing 2 Whitebeard Pirates cards out of our hand, we can bounce the Marco back into hand and stop David from drawing more cards. Also leaves him with just 1 blocker for the remaining 3 bodies. A C4 Don being paid for.
You've got to go Atmos here, Ben. Come on. Atmos comes down, takes the Marco off the board. This takes away a blocker, but it also potentially takes away 3 cards.
I love that from David. He's saying, yeah, you're targeting Pudding, right? Pudding's going back into hand. Eduardo's a little bit smarter than that. Now counting out with all of the math, seeing 6 Don get paid for. Oh, it's Red Rock as well.
Red Rock on the Uta. Is that going to be all it takes? We're going to see a swing with the leader. David can probably counter out of this, but can he then counter out of the Jozu and then counter out of the Whitebeard as well? It feels like removing both of those blockers has opened up the route to victory here. Eduardo just wants to celebrate. And there we go, and that is going to be the end, and Eduardo is going to be your one-piece card game Euro European champion. One Piece Card Fest band in Germany in Düsseldorf ends with Ace and Eduardo claiming that victory. And what a hard-fought best of 3 it was, Ben.
Yeah, a really tough best of 3 for both these players. You can see how much it means to Eduardo as well. The emotion, the jubilation. This is what the height of competitive One Piece card game, the Championship 25-26 season, has been all about, being able to climb all the way to the top.